Huge bounce back win for the Cubs. The debacle a couple of days ago, last night, they went back out there and they got it done. We're going to talk about that. Christopher Morel with a grand slam, Ben Brown pitching, Patrick Wisdom beating on the door to join this team that continues to hit. And the Cubs look for a series victory against the Padres. All things considered, we're going into today's game with a chance to take 2 out of 3. I think that's pretty good. Welcome to the Cubs Baseball channel. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up so you know when we're dropping content. And subscribe because you love the Cubs and we do too. Go Cubs. Oh, there he is. The man, the myth, the legend, Anthony Pasquale. I'm Mick Gillispie. Welcome to the Cubs Baseball channel. We've got good news to report today, my friend. Cubs win.
Yeah, I mean, you can't talk enough about how big that win was last night. Coming off of the 8-run blown lead, it would have been so easy to carry that into the next game, the next series, the whole road trip, honestly, coming off such a hot start at home. And the Cubs bounced back in a big way. Ben Brown was great to start. A little bit of offense came later. They locked it down, and Cubs are winners last night. And I think especially after the debacle on Monday, you got to be smiling from ear to ear after that one.
Epic loss, too. I mean, the more that you get away from it and you look back and you're going, man, this is the first time we've blown an 8-run lead since 2002. It's the biggest comeback that the Padres have ever had, right? Maybe at their stadium or whatever. I mean, it's just like you're like, how did it happen? And it happened so fast,
Yeah, boom, boom, boom.
And we were talking about like that game and how it really could affect a lot of different things. You know, I saw what Craig Counsell said after the game, and he was just like, basically how they were aggressive and they were hitting first pitches. It was like the way that a manager looks at it. It wasn't like, hey, we just blew this lead. He could tell he was pissed, but
right.
It was like, what we could have done differently already turning in his head. And and for the Cubs to come back and jump on them like that and take care of business. And we're going to get into Ben Brown in the start, but the offense is doing really big things right now. They're one of the best in baseball. Gomes, a guy that I think we both really like with a home run. And then Christopher Morel, that's why we're playing him at third to get it figured out, right? Because he's so dangerous in the lineup.
Yeah, and the thing is, 2 nights ago, the part of that story, obviously you blow the lead, but this part of that story that gets lost is the fact that the offense, again, put up 8 runs. Like, that's still a really strong production from your offense, and Hap's been good out of the one spot. Suzuki had 3 hits last night. Bellinger still almost got it going. He hit a few homers and a nice RBI double 2 nights ago. Yesterday was a little bit quiet, but Morel, bases loaded, goes yard to left. I think, but like you said, it was deadlocked at 0 until Gomes came up and delivered that go-ahead blast to left, and you knew as soon as it hit off his bat, he got it. And you're right, he is a guy we both like a lot. He does a lot of good things for that pitching staff. I think Counsell has done a really good job at putting Amaya with who he fits better with and putting Gomes who he fits better with. But when you get a rookie on the mound, how nice is it to know that you've got Gomes back there? And not only is he helping you on the pitching side of things, but he's going to go give you some run support too. So 5 runs in a really quick span for the Cubs to put it on, and then only give up 1 the rest of the way. It's a nice win.
Yeah, he also made a really nice defensive play on that little ground ball out in front of the plate. It's like he
was out by a mile too.
I know. He's got a rocket arm.
Yeah.
I wish that the Cubs had him like 10 years ago, where you could have kept him for a long time. I mean, being 37, you're like, how many more years? And then I worry about the depth behind him because I'm not confident in having Amaya as your everyday catcher. And then you got all these guys that they've signed in the minor leagues because they know that every time there's a guy to sign that can catch, they're signing them. I think they got like 4 dudes down there right now. They have to, because it is such a big drop off between Gomes and what they have. And then, prospect wise, they got their 2 best catching prospects in AA, but they're not ready yet, Ballesteros and Aliendo. And so you got the 4 veterans or whatever they have in AAA. So you got a lot of guys there that they're trying to work. Well, really 3 veterans, right? They signed Casale, and I saw they signed somebody else. And then, but I worry, and I'm sure they do too. Like, hey, we'd rather just have a lot of extra catchers than not have someone should something happen. And then Morel, how about 431 feet into the upper deck? Like, no doubt about it. The ball jumps off of his bat. And that was like you see all the bases loaded. I got up, went to the bathroom. I come back and I just get back just in time to see like the ball jump off his bat. I'm like, I didn't think it flew like that at Petco.
Yeah, it was an absolute blast, and the Cubs needed it for sure. And he'd been a little cold after his hot start to the season. He had a rough day at the plate 2 nights ago, the opener against San Diego. He
Yeah.
really didn't look good at the plate, so that was a really nice bounce back for him. But you were talking about the Cubs' kind of lack of catching in the system. How long until we see Christopher Morel put some pads on and them try him behind the
Wow.
plate?
Can you imagine that? I mean, there was a guy named Robinson Chirinos who played
He was a Cub for a
shortstop.
little bit.
Yeah, he was a shortstop. And they sent him back because they didn't think he was going to hit. Although I will tell you that his hitting coach was positive that he was going to hit. Barbaro Garbe, who was on the 84 Tigers that won the World Series, he was like adamant that he was going to be able to hit. Well, they sent him back. He came back up through as a catcher, and he ended up making it to the big leagues. And he was always a really good hitter. So,
Yeah.
like, I think he could have made it as a catcher. As a shortstop too. But yeah, sometimes you put great athletes at catcher, and I know you're kidding, but you never know in this game. I
Yeah,
mean,
you
if
really
Morel
don't.
can't figure out how to catch the ball over at third, why not? Right. I mean,
Right.
I mean,
'Cause I know they talked about first a little bit. He's tried some outfield. Catcher's like the only position he hasn't tried yet, so who knows?
yeah.
Maybe they do throw him back there.
Hey, how about Michael Bush? He's been so good defensively. Like,
That scoop?
yeah, like,
Yeah,
and the book on him was that he wasn't that good defensively. Nobody said he was bad,
I've been
but he's
impressed.
been, yeah, me too. Like, the Cubs scouting department must have had something on him where they said, "Hey, we saw him play in college at first base and he was good at it." And then the Dodgers moved him off of first because they had Freddie Freeman,
Yeah.
who might be a Hall of Famer one day, one of the greats. And so it's like, well, let's put him at second, let's put him at third. But he's been like a fish to water. I mean, it looks really good over there right now.
Yeah, it's one of those situations that you don't often see the Dodgers, and you can't even call it screwing up because they have Freddie Freeman there, but it's pretty rare that you see the Dodgers not capitalize on the most that they can get out of players, because we've seen them. Obviously, they spend the big money, but they also develop guys like nobody's business. They're churning out pitchers, shortstops everywhere. They've got young talent, and they have a top payroll and always a top farm system. And getting to kind of pick kind of the top of that farm system, and obviously, you mentioned it the other night. You gave up a lot for him.
Yeah.
Jackson Ferris is going to be a good pitcher someday. And you got back Bush and Almonte, of course. But Bush looks like, I mean, I don't want to say a steal because it's been 10, 11 games, but he looks every bit that you've bargained for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And then how about Ben Brown in the start? Um, I love how I got to give Craig Counsell credit. I love the way that he worked this whole process. First, he was a reliever. Then he was the balk pitcher, right?
Yeah, the guy who came in right after the opener.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Which I hate. I'm just going to tell you that right now. With that said, in this case, I liked it, but I like starters, and I'm old school, where I love the matchup where it's like, hey, it's you against me. It's, your best against our best. But the way that the game's played now, I know it's different. I don't want to be the get off my lawn old man guy either. And this was a situation where Craig Counsell kind of, walked him through those first two, and then they finally throw him out on the mound and in a start, and he was great. I mean, I don't think there's anything else I can say, but he was great.
Yeah, you needed every bit of that outing too, with how the bullpen has looked and how kind of thin they were after Sunday, Monday. The big issue for me, and maybe it's more of an issue with the MLB rule. I don't totally blame Counsell for taking him out on what was probably a bad matchup, and bringing in Smiley, the lefty, to face a lefty. But
Mhm.
the fact that Ben Brown goes 4 innings and 2/3, no runs, and he doesn't get the win in this game really pisses me off
Yeah,
because
right.
he, like, for all intents and purposes, he was your winning pitcher. He's the guy you won because of, and I wish he could have gotten that last out to qualify for the win. I think technically then Smiley gets the win to last night,
Right.
but at the end of the day, Ben Brown deserves the win, which is why I wish he could have gotten the tally in the W column.
Yeah, you know what? I get it. I mean, last night, snake bit. Maybe if they wouldn't have put a side out to start the sixth, he gives up the home run. And I don't know. I mean, I still kind of feel like a lot of that is how hard they hit Quas, but there's a lot of other things that happened in there, right? So then
Mhm.
tonight, here's Ben Brown, and he's cruising along, and out of the game he goes, 77 pitches in 4 2/3 innings. I would have preferred to let him stay in, get the final out, pitch the 5 innings, get the win. But this isn't how baseball's played. You got analytics. It's like, hey, we don't want him going over 80. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's these magic numbers work. I think that they're a good barometer, but it's like, if he would have thrown 83 pitches or 85 pitches, is it any different than 77? Right? I mean, give him one more batter, like let him get through it, get the win. But I see this all up and down the system, all up and down the minor leagues. Right now we're just so stuck on, these analytics that this is the way it is. You could have a perfect game going, and somebody's going to come out and be like, well, if you could pitch a perfect game tonight, but chances are 4 games from now your arm's going to hurt. It's like,
Yeah, and we see all these arm injuries anyway, so it's obviously not preventing all that much in general. But the other thing about it is, with a young pitcher, confidence is so important, and maybe you want to almost, like, maybe you pull him to protect him so he can leave the game feeling confident, didn't give up any runs tonight, as opposed if he faces that last batter and gives up a solo homer, it feels a little bit different. So for that reason, I kind of understand pulling him.
mhm.
But I mean, I always think back to, I think it was the COVID World Series when the Rays pulled Blake Snell when he was
Yeah.
dealing, and the first guy that came in faced Mookie. I think Mookie got on, and the next guy hit a homer or something like that. It was really bad, and it just, like, that's kind of the your opposite of analytics, of, like, go with the hot hand, go with what the eye test is showing you. And the eye test said tonight that Ben Brown was pitching good enough to get one more out. At least
Yeah.
I think so. But
I think so too. I'm with you.
um,
I
S-
agree.
Smiley came in, did his job too. He looked pretty good. I think
Mhm.
he gave up just the one solo homer. Um,
Blast, though.
I was expecting Smiley to maybe go another inning. I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
you'd get two out of him instead of, I guess, one and a third. But Leiter looked good. Almonte looked okay, and I like Adbert coming in to kind of get some confidence back too. But I was talking to you before we started recording. If this is a long road trip, and if tomorrow, or today, excuse me, is a save situation, and you don't have Alzolay and you don't have a ton of confidence in Neris, and Leiter Jr. pitched tonight also, it's, if you need to get a save today, who's going to get it?
That's right. Yeah, that's the tough part about it. I like how he came in and was throwing inside. He just looked like he was pissed off,
He
and
looked good.
yeah, he looked like he had a chip on his shoulder. The whole team played like they had a chip on their shoulder. Biggest play of the game wasn't the grand slam, wasn't the home run. It was in the first inning when Belly, um, threw out was it Bogarts tagging up and trying to go to third?
Yeah, Tatis hit it. Bogarts was tagging up, and Morel with a great pick on the other end
I
too.
know.
That was maybe his best play at third so far.
Yeah, but that double play to me was like, that's when you're a young pitcher and you're out on the mound. I mean, think about the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
When he's pitching and Morel kicks the ball in Texas and then kicks it again, and the next thing you know, it's like that second inning turned into a disaster. And I don't think they charged errors on those plays at third, but there were two plays that should have been made.
For sure.
Today is the opposite. And you're right. Morel gets credit on the other end of it, and the throw from Bellinger. But I just felt like that was the moment where it was like, you're like, the last thing you want to do is fall behind. And
Yeah.
then you get that out. And then from that point on, Ben Brown was the good Ben Brown. And I've seen him look like that before. And it was, the Cubs needed it.
Yeah, I feel like everybody who watched the game last night would say when Bogarts hit the double to lead off the game off of Ben Brown, you're like, oh no, here we
There we
go
go.
again. It's gonna be a long game. And then next batter, Bellinger doubled him up. And especially Tatis kind of had a rough game last night, which was awesome to see after hitting a go-ahead homer 2 nights ago. He
Yeah.
definitely didn't look the same last night, and it was good to get that double play off of him right away. And I think that kind of shook whatever nerves or rust or whatever was going on with Ben Brown, and he looked dialed in the rest of the way.
Yeah. 3 hits, no runs, a walk, 5 strikeouts for Brown. Right. So,
Mm-hmm.
but no win, like you said. Let's talk about a guy that's not on the team right now. We mentioned him before. He's getting close. They're going to have to make a move here. But Patrick Wisdom destroying pitching in Iowa. I saw him in spring training, and I got to be honest, I was surprised at how locked in he was there before he had the stiff back, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 for 4, double home run for the Iowa Cubs. He is a guy who can obviously do a lot of damage with his bat. Don't like him in the field, like he gets strikes out a ton. He gets exposed if you play him a lot, but in short bursts, he's a dangerous guy. And I'm wondering what the move is. I guess it's Miles Masterboni.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, I guess they don't need the offense right now. That's the
Yeah.
the only part of the game that feels pretty good. But I think there is a role for Patrick Wisdom on this team, and I know a lot of people like to throw David Ross under the bus, but he kind of figured it out toward the end of last season
Mhm.
that when you platoon him against favorable left-handed matchups, you're pretty much guaranteed a homer or at least a double down the line every
Yeah.
time he plays. And when you had to start him every day, which of course wasn't David Ross's fault, but there were some times during his tenure where you needed Wisdom out there every day.
Right.
That's when he kind of gets exposed. But if you do, you know, probably at third on a day when Morel's DHing or at DH, I don't see a ton of room for him at first because that Bush Cooper platoon feels pretty steady right now.
Yeah. I like that too.
Um, but the fact of the matter is Miles Mastroboni is the only guy that's not factoring into the starting lineup at all right now. You've got Amaya and Gomes that are getting looks. You've got Cooper and Bush getting looks, and you've got Madrigal and Morel. But the only one not really getting a ton of action is Mastroboni because that fourth outfielder is Talkman, and if anybody needs a rest, he gets the start. You mentioned Mastroboni does have the ability to play short or second should Horner or Swanson need it, but I guess keep Wisdom up until you need Mastroboni because he really hasn't played much. He hasn't done much. I know he's quick too, but I think Wisdom can serve a bigger role than what Mastroboni served so far.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I like Masterboni. I mean, I last year I wasn't a huge fan, but over the course of time, I've learned to appreciate a guy that can run, a guy that can play anywhere on the infield, can play in the outfield. He's
Mhm.
not going to embarrass himself. He runs hard. He's a smart player. And I think that during the course of a game, there's more uses for him than just a guy that can hit a home run. But
That's
with that
fair.
said, I also appreciate Wisdom. And like you said, you put him in the lineup against lefties. You can use him in that DH spot, even if it's just half a game. as the DH, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see what the move is. I'm sure that's what it's going to be. And I was surprised, and I'm still waiting. I'm surprised that the Cubs haven't done more with the bullpen. Not saying that they're not going to,
Yeah.
but I'm monitoring Iowa. I'm looking down there, and I'm thinking, what's the move going to be? Because after last night's game, and don't forget that one of those wins against, what was it, the Dodgers, right? They had a
Colorado, we
big
almost
oh, it was
blew.
Colorado. Yeah, like they had the big lead, and then, they were lucky to win. Remember, they blew a big lead in that game.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need pitching help. So, we'll see what happens. But you have all these guys for a reason. And at some point you got to trust them. And I think it almost hurts big market teams like the Cubs, because you feel like you can't do the same things that the Rays will do, or Baltimore will do, or even the White Sox, and they're in the same city. But we're so hesitant. We got all these good players that are coming up, and then, rarely do they get an opportunity. But Ben Brown tonight is a great example of how these guys can help. Wicks last year, and I know some of you guys are going to be like, Mick, you said Pete Crow Armstrong. Listen, Pete Crow Armstrong's going to prove me right eventually. Now, the other day he left the game. He made a great diving catch. Go back and watch it. Excellent diving catch, and just kind of tweaked his arm. Maybe, I don't want to say hyperextend it, but it was like a abundance of caution thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when it all clicks for him in the big leagues, you're gonna be like, man, this guy brings so much to the table. I'm not saying he's ready right now, but what I'm saying is, pitching wise, there's some guys that can help you better than having Jose Cuas come out.
Yeah, and, I mean, Keegan Thompson's a guy that I've been looking forward to whenever he comes back to the big leagues. I mean, you remember 2 years ago, Justin Steele had a pretty good year, but Keegan Thompson was the guy that many
Yeah,
expected to take over that spot in the rotation and be a top of the rotation guy, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way. The beginning of last year, you kinda thought it was gonna go Thompson, Boxberger, Fulmer as your 7, 8,
that's right.
9. And that obviously shook out differently as the season played along, but there's obviously something still there with Thompson. Hayden Wesneski's another guy.
Mhm.
Maybe if you need a spot start or a long reliever, I know Council likes him a lot. And we mentioned Carl Edwards Jr. I don't know. I haven't seen if they've officially signed him to the minor league deal, but I know he's in Iowa and he's ramping back up. So whenever that officially comes out, he'd probably be the guy I expect to see up first. But you mentioned it, and we've been talking for a few days now. There's some guys on that 40-man roster that any of them you would rather hear come out of the bullpen than Quas at the moment.
Yeah, the other guy, Cam Sanders, I'm telling you, this guy had a great spring. Dad was a big leaguer. He's got excellent stuff. He's someone to keep an eye on. It's just a matter. And then Pannone, remember they signed him. He's been really good. I mean, 10 and 2/3 innings in Iowa and has given up 4 hits. There's options down there. Riley
Hmm.
Thompson, who's someone they really believe in, has gotten off to a good start. You mentioned Wisniewski. So we'll find out. What's the other guy? Brad Wick. I mean, remember him?
Yeah,
He's down there and he's doing well. And Carl Edwards Jr. is officially pitching for them. Went 2/3
perfect.
of an inning, so he's in there too. So we've got options, and I know they know that. It's just a matter of seeing how they're going to manipulate this roster, because they're going to have to make some moves. And talking about moves, game tonight, 5:40 Central Time, so we don't have to wait up all night. Now, after this, we got a day off, and then you're gonna have to wait up. You're gonna have to watch the game. It's gonna be a all night affair. But the getaway day, 5:40 against the Padres. The Cubs will hang out on the West Coast because they still have 2 more series out there. But here's the pitching matchup for you: Kyle Hendricks against Dylan Cease. Hendricks 0-1 with an 11.74 ERA, and then Cease, a former Cubs minor leaguer, traded to the Sox. Sox traded him to the Padres, 0-1 with a 3.38 ERA. He's got electric stuff. The question I have for you: are you worried about Kyle Hendricks?
Yeah, I was actually going to say, of the guys that are currently starting for the Cubs, so that's Ben Brown, Jordan Wicks, Javier Assad, Shota Imanaga, and Kyle Hendricks. The one I'm most nervous for every fifth day is Kyle Hendricks. And I love the guy. I think he's going to figure it out, but right now he's not our strongest pitcher. He's I mean, it's just it hasn't looked great so far, and it's been early in games that they've been jumping on him. The Dodgers jumped on him in that first inning when we had the watch party. He battled back to finish 4 innings, but Cubs were in a hole immediately, and that first start against Texas was the same deal. So I'm hoping today against the Padres, it's a little bit different from him. On the flip side, I know Cease is a guy when he pitched for the White Sox that the Cubs saw a lot, and despite being the Sox best pitcher at the time, the Cubs seemed to hit him pretty good. I know those were more, Rizzo and Contreras type teams. It's a little
Mhm.
bit different now. But I think some of these players have seen him and hit him a little well before. So it's a matchup that the stuff scares me, but the name doesn't all that much.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Well, we'll find out. And then honestly, and I love Kyle Hendricks too, personally and professionally. Um, he's more of a guy that I would feel like you got to get out after 4 innings because it seems like the wheels fall off. But I'm waiting for him to get it turned around. The good news is that you see Ben Brown and you see Javier Assad. Um, we had Tyone on obviously a couple days ago. I'm guessing maybe 2 more starts and then he's going to be back. Justin Steele's getting better, hasn't thrown off the mound, but he has been throwing.
Hmm.
So if there's other options out there if things go south, but it's still early. So hopefully for Hendricks and the Cubs, he figures it out. All right.
Absolutely.
Great show. Thank you guys. Comment section, get in there and talk about this one. But as you mentioned, Anthony, at the very beginning of the show, huge win. It's early in the season, I know, but after the way that debacle happened a couple of, nights ago, where you blow an 8-run lead, as demoralizing as that game is, as difficult as it is to come back and basically with a rookie pitcher making his first career start, just shove it. I think that's a big thing. And I could tell that the team came out with a sense of urgency and they delivered. So let's get the series victory today. And we will talk to you guys again really soon. Go Cubs.
Fly it.